Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. After a period of personal struggles, Ozzy Osbourne returned with a vengeance. Ozzmosis featured a powerhouse lineup of rock and metal royalty and was more than just a comeback album. It was a reminder and reaffirmation of Ozzy's status as king of heavy metal. With Zakk Wylde's searing guitar work, Geezer Butler's thunderous bass, and Osbourne's introspective lyrics, Ozzmosis delivered and executed a potent dose of Ozzy's signature sound, proving that the Prince of Darkness was still a force to be reckoned with and solidifying his iconic status in the heavy metal world. Joining me to discuss this album is my co-host, Mr. Felipe Amarim. How you doing, bro?
Doing great, man, and you?
Good, yeah, not bad, thank you, not bad. Just for viewers and listeners, we actually met up this weekend, myself and Felipe, and our wives, of course. We had a great time, walked around Richmond, had a lovely meal in the pub. Really good to hang out, wasn't it? See
great,
each other
isn't
again.
it? Just see each other in real life. We normally only see each other on the screen.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because we've gone from being best friends on tour, where we see each other, you know, like weeks at a time, then weeks without seeing each other. And we're just so used to seeing each other, giving each other a hug, you know, turning around and seeing you on the drum kit, to have just the last year or two just gone to like just see you every Wednesday on the screen. And it was kind of weird when I saw you.
But at least we have this, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of weird when I saw you and walked into your house. I was like, he's here. The man, the myth, the legend, Felipe, he's in front of me.
Real person.
Yeah, exactly.
I do exist, in real world, not only on the screen. So.
Excellent. Well, just a little note from us. We might have both caught something in London because we're both feeling a bit under the weather. So if our voices sound a bit croaky, that's why. But as usual, we're still going to deliver you an excellent podcast. But you got to do something for us. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please do us a favour and scroll down and review the show, because if you give us a good rating, we go up in the charts and more people see us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with our content. So, Ozzmosis by Ozzy Osbourne, released the year I was born, 1995. A few quick album details. So the album was released 24th of October 1995 and recorded between 1994 and 1995 across various studios in Paris, New York, Woodstock. The genre is heavy metal, and it clocks in just under an hour at 56 minutes in length, released on the Epic label and produced by Michael Beinhorn. So, this is one of your favourite albums ever, which I found out. Quick little funny thing as well. When we do the schedule for our podcast, Felipe chooses an album, then I choose an album, then Felipe. And when it came to this one, what happened is Felipe chose Trash by Alice Cooper. And then next up in our schedule was Ozzmosis. So then I chose it because I chose one from my list. And Felipe messaged me yesterday and was like, listen, I chose Ozzmosis because it's my favourite album. So I think we should do it like this. And I was like, hold on. I chose Ozzmosis, and we just found out.
It's on my list. I chose on my list.
So we found out that we both chose it. But since Felipe told me it's one of his favourite albums, I'm gonna let Felipe take the lead and sort of take us through the structures. So Felipe, bro, kick off, man. Let's go. Let's talk about Ozzmosis, man.
Yeah, man. I first came across this album when a friend of mine recommended it to me without actually knowing the album. He heard about it and said, we should buy this one. So back in the day before Spotify and YouTube, we had to buy CDs, the ancient device called CD. You put on the sound system and it plays. For those of you who are younger than us, you're young, Lars, you didn't have a CD player. So basically a friend of mine was like, we need to buy some CDs to listen to the good stuff, right, that doesn't play on the radio. And basically we didn't have enough money, so we would share this, like the CDs. Basically, if we go together and buy 4 CDs, then the 4 of them belong to all of us, so to both of us, so we can each week you keep 2 of them, whatever. We did that. One of the albums was Ozzmosis, and it really blew my mind when I listened to it, because I wasn't into heavy rock. I was more into classic rock, like, Deep Purple, Pink Floyd, Queen, Beatles, that kind of stuff. Not like anything that heavy. And Ozzy, I liked him with Black Sabbath, but I wasn't sure if I liked his solo stuff. At the time, I had listened to the live album he did just before this one.
Had you already
Live and Loud, I guess?
Had you already been into Black Sabbath before you heard this album?
Yes. I was a Sabbath
fan. You knew who Ozzy was.
Yeah, funny or not, like most people know Ozzy, or they get to know Ozzy before Sabbath, I would say, because he's he's
Such an
quite
icon, isn't he?
famous figure, isn't it? But anyway, so when I first listened to it, I was like, this is way too good to be true. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's half of Black Sabbath in it. That's why. So it is. So in a certain way, this album connects the two distinct eras of Ozzy's career. So him as a band member and him as the leader, because he's doing both in this case. Because when basically he didn't have a band, because he was touring with his band, and then that was supposed to be what there was intended to be his last ever tour. So they were touring the album No More Tears, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, no, you're right. So No More Tears came out in 1991, and then after No More Tears released, he announced that he was going to retire from music. There was still the tour to come, I think, and then they released Live and Loud. But supposedly, sort of up until 1992, well, no, sorry, from 1992 onwards, supposedly, Ozzy was retired.
Yeah, so it was like a short retirement, 3 years, because I think I couldn't find more sources about this. I think he was diagnosed with something that he thought, it would be the end for him or something like that.
Yeah, numerous battles with substance abuse. He had health issues as well. And the public didn't know what was going on with him. I think it was very much kept behind closed doors. And yeah, just
so it's a proper comeback, isn't it? Because people didn't even know if he would tour again or if he would stay alive for much longer. I mean, he's still going impressively. But yeah, so he's one of those.
30 years later, he's still going.
I honestly thought he would die before the Queen, but he's still around. I mean, he's never gonna go. He's never gonna go.
No.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he stays alive forever. I hope he turns 250 years old and keep doing music. But so basically, that was a proper comeback in a way. If he didn't even know if he would go back on the road, and the tour was called No More Tours, as a reference to No More Tears. And then he went back on the road. I think during the process of recording this album, I'm not quite sure about it, but it was called Retirement Circus Tour, and really appropriate name. And then he was back on the road and he wanted to record. And here is the most interesting story about this album, I believe, because I recently found out he wrote and probably recorded about 10 songs with Steve Vai on guitar. So, because when he retired, his band went on tour during their own projects, their solo stuff or bands they joined. So he didn't have a band anymore. Of course, being Ozzy Osbourne, you can just hire anyone you want or do partnerships with anyone you want. And he wanted Steve Vai. So if any of you guys are not familiar with him, look him up. One of the best musicians of all time, not even guitar player, not only guitar player. Played with Frank Zappa. He's got like a solo career that is absolutely mind-blowing in terms of guitar playing.
Yep.
Anyway, so Steve Vai is like phenomenal musician, joins Ozzy and they start writing stuff together. Some people said that the songs they were never released because Steve Vai had a problem with Ozzy, and that is apparently not true, because I've just listened to a short interview with Steve Vai, and he was saying that Ozzy is like the funniest guy ever, and he just keeps telling story after story, makes you laugh all day. And he said that environment was great, for him. Like, he was having a great time with Ozzy, listening to his stories and having fun and writing songs.
Sorry, before you go on, what was the reasoning behind them not getting on? What did they think? What did people say?
That's what I don't know. People said they didn't get on, but that's not true, apparently, because there's nothing that Ozzy, I think, ever said about Steve Vai, anything negative about him. And Steve Vai was like really happy to do that project. But Ozzy's got a big team behind him, and they're really concerned about commercial success, right? So there's a label, there's the management and all that stuff.
The wife.
The wife, exactly. The management is the wife. Exactly. Sure. Yeah. Sharon's been looking after him since forever, and it's a solid like business partnership, regardless of being also solid like relationship or all of that. But they've been, working together for a while. So I imagine Sharon and the record label and everyone got together and said, no, we don't want this. Steve Vai said it was way too heavy. Like he said, it was too heavy for the label. They didn't like it. Like heavier than previous Ozzy's albums, and
Wow.
heavier than anything he's done as a guitar player, with the different tunings on the guitar, everything like really low and deep.
That's really interesting because back in those days, sort of, when you think about No More Tears and Ozzy's solo albums, they kind of came as glam metal was dying out, and it was the perfect, in my opinion, people call it heavy metal, and we have different versions. Again, I won't go too far on this. What is heavy metal as a subgenre? We know heavy metal is a main genre, but as a subgenre, what is it? In my opinion, and from my research, in the 70s, heavy metal was Black Sabbath. In the 80s, heavy metal was Iron Maiden. In the 90s, where we have all these different subgenres of heavy metal, I think Ozzy Osbourne and Judas Priest are examples of heavy metal as a subgenre. So my point is that these albums that Ozzy was doing were so significant to metal because they, as I just said, it was the 90s version of what we know heavy metal to be. And it came at the end of as glam metal was dying out. He took the best parts from glam metal, the fast riffs, the really sort of polished production, and he mixed it with what he knew. Some dark lyrics, some sort of dissonant chord changes and everything. And that's what we get in No More Tears, Bark at the Moon, Ozzmosis. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, like, for some reason, Bark at the Moon and No More Tears get more attention than Ozzmosis. I don't know why.
I think they were just a bit more, not groundbreaking. I just think they were earlier albums, weren't they? And I think you can hear that Ozzy has more energy in those albums. His voice is better. I love this. I love the vocals on this album because you can just so clearly hear it's him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Randy Rhoads played a part in those albums as well. He was a young up and coming guitarist before his tragic death.
No More Tears is Zakk Wylde already, isn't it?
That is, yeah, but Bark at the Moon was Randy Rhoads. You're right. It's weird. They do get more attention, don't they? They do get a bit more plaudits than this one.
Yeah, very rarely people list this album as like one of his best ones. Like, I think people just forget, to just overlook this.
Yeah.
And it actually did really well on the charts. I think it was number 4 in America and 22 in the UK. Interesting, like his music was always more appealing for the American audiences, isn't it?
It got to number 2 in the UK.
Number 2?
Yeah, number 4 in the US, 2 in the UK,
okay.
And top 10 in Canada, Finland, Sweden, and Japan. Funnily enough, all those countries...
I've added another 2. I said 22.
Funnily enough, all those countries love metal. Canada, Japan, Finland, Sweden.
Yeah, but there's a fine line there, isn't it, between metal and kind of the other genres like glam rock or hard rock, and that sort of more pop version of heavy rock. And I think this album it's on that line in a way, because maybe that's the reason why some of the classic, like fans, or the old, the hardcore fans that maybe don't like this album that much, because it's not that heavy in terms of production. Yeah. So there's something about music production that you can make something really, really heavy sound polished enough for the radio. And I think there's a lot of this in this album in terms of the drum and guitar sounds mostly. I think the bass is really loud and deep. I love the bass sound in this whole album. I think they've put the bass in the front for the first time in an Ozzy album.
Yeah, I think you've got a beautiful marriage between hard rock and heavy metal, because this is what I'm saying. I'm saying that as for what was going on in the time of when this came out, mid-90s, okay, grunge had peaked and was now sort of dying out. Yeah. Post-grunge was coming in, Creed, Foo Fighters, those kind of bands, sort of taking grunge to a more poppy side. Glam metal had just finished, as I said earlier. So you had Ozzy kind of consolidating everything, taking the best parts of glam metal, taking the serious depressingness of grunge, and adding Geezer Butler and Zakk Wylde into it. So it does sit on the fence, because you listen to these songs. I mean, just to compare something that came out at roughly the same time. I mean, Painkiller by Judas Priest. Quick note for anyone listening. Any song we mention, and including the full album, we have a dedicated playlist in the show notes and the YouTube description. So if you go down there and click it, then we'll have every song on the album, plus any other songs we mention. You click it and you can listen along, and when we mention a song, you can hear it and see what we're talking about. So all of these songs will be in the playlist. If you compare something like Painkiller by Judas Priest, which is just proper, fast, out-and-out heavy metal, to this, it's chalk and cheese. You'd say Judas Priest, obvious heavy metal, Ozzy Osbourne, rock. But because of... here's a question for you. Do you think because of who he is, the heavy metal label is attached to it? Because I'm wondering if a new unknown blues guitarist came out and wrote this album, you'd still go, okay, it's on the heavier side of rock, but it's still rock. When I listen to songs like... Ghost Behind My Eyes, See You on the Other Side, My Little Man, they're way more rock than metal. But because it's Ozzy,
in a way, there's like too many ballads in the album, right?
They're all good, but there are a lot.
How can you consider this a heavy metal album? I think there's a problem with heavy metal, the expression to be used to label a lot of stuff that people simply don't know what it is.
Okay.
And I think, if it's heavy, it's heavy metal. Well, not how heavy does it have to be? Like, for me, clearly Iron Maiden, Pantera are heavy metal. Like they're heavy as fuck. This album, I think, because of the ballads, like the strong presence of keyboards and piano, it's not. I don't know. I think Ozzy. To be fair to him, he never ever liked to be considered a heavy metal artist. He always said, "I do hard rock. What I do is hard rock." I think it's in a certain way is a more comfortable label for him. Like, because if you're a heavy metal fan, some of the stuff in this album is going to be too radio friendly for you. And that's not what heavy metal fans are looking for.
That's true.
And that's not what they should be looking for, right? So if you put this album like side by side with Maiden and Pantera, as I said, or Judas Priest, well, it's not half as heavy as those guys, in my opinion.
So I think the
riffs are quite heavy.
Yes, and I also think my assertion was correct, that maybe because it's Ozzy Osbourne who fronted the first band to create heavy metal, maybe that adds another... Do you know what I mean? It comes with a little asterisk. Okay, so Ozzy Osbourne, it's hard rock, but because it's Ozzy, it's heavy metal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you know what? There's the whole imagery, like everything that people associate with him as well. So you got to think of him like, unfortunately, he's always going to be the guy who ate the bat's head, and and the drug abuse and all that stuff. When you consider those elements, what you think is this is heavy in many ways, like everything that comes with the image of Ozzy Osbourne makes you think of heavy
exudes
music.
Heavy metal. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
You're right.
But anyway, so he had going back to Steve Vai. So those songs, God, I really wish I could listen to that, because I imagine how interesting that must be. But anyway, those songs were not. One of them made it to the album, My Little Man, which is a song he did for his son, apparently. Oh, I believe it is. Sounds like it. And that's I think it's Steve Vai playing the sitar, because I think he recorded it and he made it to the album, and it's a beautiful song. Probably they picked the only one that wasn't that heavy and put in the album. So I'm glad at least one of those songs made it to the final cut.
But it's a nice song outside of it. It's like it's a well-written song.
Really is. And the sitar just brings a completely different vibe for this kind of music. Again, you don't have sitar in heavy metal, do you?
No,
so it's not that kind of a instrument for that kind of music. So I mean so the guys he had with him, so you got to consider like Geezer Butler on Black Sabbath is a different Geezer Butler than the one I hear in this album, because I think you have that when he was playing with Black Sabbath, he would just go nuts and play a different bass line on every bar. And it's just beautiful and just works. And I think with this album, he managed to stick to the groove a little bit more, repeat the riffs. So you have two generations of rock musicians there with Geezer and Zakk Wylde. Zakk is like modern guitar sounds and like really fast playing and all the stuff. And I find incredible that Geezer managed to follow his riffs and just play that thing like and groove with him in such an amazing way.
Yeah.
And shout out to Dean Castronovo, the drummer, who is a virtuoso drummer and great singer as well.
Really?
Yeah, he's a really good singer. And he's he played with, or still playing with, Journey. I never know if they're still on the road or not. Anyway, he's a phenomenal musician as well. And his drumming on the album is spot on. It's just what is needed for the song. Again, you have those musicians who can play everything, but you need to kind of give them some restrictions, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got that sort of even for Geezer Butler's, for the role he plays, in which you said he does really well of just sort of sticking with the groove, following the riff, not overplaying, not that he ever overplayed, but just what you said, Sabbath, sometimes he'd go off and do his own thing. There are a few bass breaks in a couple of the songs, isn't there? Thunder Underground, you got the little bass break towards the end, and in the bridge of My Jekyll Doesn't Hide. But Geezer is still geezering. It still sounds like him, although it's not his full bass personality on show. It still sounds like him. And then you've got Zakk Wylde, who, honestly, man, the guitar playing on this album is phenomenal. And I'm talking riffs, techniques, sound effects, solos, but because of that, he is at the forefront of the album with Ozzy. So as you said, Dean Castronovo has to sit back and play, and I think he's got a really hard job because, again, where is the line between metal drumming and rock drumming? And I think he's got an easier job on the ballads, on Ghost Behind My Eyes, My Little Man, those songs. But some of the heavier songs, things like, Denial, My Jekyll Doesn't Hide, Tomorrow, you have to toe the line between not going too heavy, keeping it accessible, finding that line between rock and metal, but also not stepping on the toes of Zakk Wylde and Geezer Butler.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those guys, when they work in the studio, they're normally really good at being told what to do. So I think the producer did a phenomenal job. Forgot his name. I'm terrible with producers' names.
Michael Beinhorn.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he played the keyboards. Now, there's another keyboard player for the first two songs, and that's Rick Wakeman. So Rick Wakeman...
Just another keyboard player.
Just another one. His partnership with Ozzy started when he was still playing with Yes. And I think, was it Black Sabbath Volume 4? I think that's the album he played first. I'm not quite sure. I think
so, yeah.
Yeah, I believe it is. Basically, he was recording with Yes, and Ozzy and Sabbath were recording in the studio, maybe next door to it or across the road or something. And he would, so he invited Rick Wakeman to go and play some stuff. And he said he got there, they were like all completely smashed, and just the whole band had collapsed at some point, and everyone was unconscious. And Rick Wakeman did his thing, and Ozzy listened to it, said, "Oh, that's great," and went back to sleep, and that was it. So that's how they started the partnership, and it went on over the years in different albums and different stuff. And so they got together for this album. I think it's just like some keyboard intros for Perry Mason and I Just Want You, who happen to be the two best songs in the album in a certain way, right at the beginning of the album. And I think, so that's the other thing. So you think about a dream team in rock music. So you got Rick Wakeman, Ozzy, and Geezer, kind of representing the 70s. Right?
Crazy.
And you got Dean Castronovo and Zakk Wylde representing what is the late 80s, 90s, like heavy rock. So it's two generations of great musicians. And I think apart from the drumming, because we're talking about these sort of what you can't do in an album like this, everyone had that moment to shine in the album. And it's like, it's amazing to have all those guys together. I think that's what convinced me to buy the CD at the time. My friend was like, "You've got to get this one," and I was like, "No, I don't know, man. We shouldn't put our money into this. I don't know that much about Ozzy's solo career." So, but Geezer is in it, and Rick Wakeman is in it. I said, "Well, wait a minute,"
and that sold it to you.
I'm sold. It's great. I mean, I think it made all the difference, like with the keyboards in those songs. Shall we talk about those songs? The songs,
Let's do it, man.
yeah.
Yeah, to talk about the songs. I mean, we can talk. I just want to tell you what I liked.
Mm.
Ghost Behind My Eyes. What a song! I thought, as
Oh
far
yeah,
as sort of, and again, without, I don't want to sort of, I feel like I always go too historical, but the fact that we came from the 80s where it was power ballad after cheesy power ballad after cheesy power ballad, we got a bit bored of it, you know, and we did
yeah,
Trash last week for Alice Cooper, and he did a really good one, Only My Heart Talking, I think it's called. And certain bands had good ones, but then when the same bands, every album, you know, the track 5 would be the power ballad, and it just go a bit too much. But Ozzy's done something here. It's like he's overproduced them and he's
yeah.
rocked them up a bit. Ghost Behind My Eyes for me is the perfect example of it. That solo by Zakk Wylde is stunning. The other song, do you know what? Do you know a consistent thing I found behind it
Mm.
that I found really interesting? Do you remember last week when I was saying we were talking about Trash? I
Yeah,
said every chorus is anthemic, memorable, and catchy.
yeah,
What I'm going to say about Ozzmosis, the weird thing, is that
yeah.
almost every verse is catchy and
That is
memorable. I
that's
think of
true.
yeah. Let me just try to the verse of
Was it you?
Denial.
Someone told me that like they think that Ozzy's melodies are a little bit like nursery rhymes.
Yeah, well, maybe not me, but they're bluesy
Yeah,
because they're
yeah, because
conversational.
there's a
The
repetition of the line.
Exactly, and that, yeah, that's a great point. It becomes like a nursery rhyme. And my
Yeah,
example for this is Denial. It is not the melody. I think my sing I da da. You say da da ba
yeah,
da. So simple,
yeah.
so simple. And there was a few others. I mean, My Jekyll Doesn't Hide, My Little Man, See You on the Other Side. Those verses, and that's what shocked me is that when I come away from this album, apart from Ghost Behind My Eyes, where the chorus is epic and anthemic, I was singing the verses of the songs,
Yeah,
not the
that's interesting.
choruses, which is fun. I just found it really funny. But yeah, I mean, all
But
the
it's very
songs.
effective because so you grab people's attention before the chorus comes in.
Yeah, there you
That
go.
is really cool.
I wanted to point out some of the funny rhythms as well. So on "See You on the Other Side," isn't that odd? Like it's a dum bum bum bum
Yeah,
bum bum. That if I'm doing that noise to anyone listening, you'd think
that
it like a bit
reminds me of
funky.
that reminds me of Broken Wing by Mister.
That'll be in the
Uh,
playlist.
yeah,
But yeah, just isn't that odd? Like it's one of the lead singles from this supposed heavy metal album, and the intro is like bam 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 bam. It's all
yeah.
funky, like you want to dance
Well,
to it.
I think that song has got some sort of pop vibes. You know, the other one is that's "See on the Other Side" is actually the most pop in the album in a way. And I really loved "Old LA Tonight," which is
Oh,
the last one. If you're not listening to the extended version, is the last song on the album.
yeah,
Uh,
beautiful that
Totally
one.
based on the piano more than anything else. And it's a cool way of ending an album, a heavy album with a piano ballad. Yeah, really clever.
In my notes, I've got, is this Changes Part Two?
Yeah,
Because it's
kind
it.
of, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Maybe a little less emotional than Changes.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
You
It
know,
feels like he's
little more
reflecting.
groovy.
It feels like he's reflecting on Los Angeles, not his relationship with his family or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, and I tell you what. So going back to Zakk Wylde, something like the riffs in this song, the solo in "Ghost Behind My Eyes." I already said that's stunning. Um, Denial, that
Yeah.
solo as well was fantastic. Denial almost had like a psychedelic element to it. And it kind of this, it just got me thinking a little bit. I was listening to it and I was like, there's a little bit of psychedelia here. And then I went back and thought, that's almost well, that is kind of what Sabbath did.
Yeah.
They introduced little elements of psychedelia. And so my thoughts just went on. And I wrote down my thoughts. And I said, if you, you might not agree, okay? But if you think about it and you strip it back and you strip away the production, this seems to me to be an accessible, overproduced Black Sabbath album.
Hmm.
Whereas if you listen to things like Blizzard of Oz, Bark at the Moon, to me they are glam metal.
Yeah.
Maybe glam metal with more heavy metal influences, not so cheesy, not so spandex, whatever, not so choruses about your high school teacher. But but this one seemed to me to have the roots in Sabbath's kind of lyrics for sure, the dark introspective lyrics, but songs like Denial, songs like Perry Mason, songs like what was the other one? Tomorrow, Thunder Underground. I don't
Yeah,
know.
this
Maybe
time
no one
around when I
agrees with
listen
me.
to it, I think, yeah, I'll tell you why Thunder Underground is a great one, because that's a band effort. That was written with Zakk and Geezer. So that's like the three of them writing the song together. So it's more like a band, isn't it? When you have your
Yeah.
bassist and the guitar player co-writing the song, and considering that the bassist is Black Sabbath bassist, so
Hmm.
basically it's your old bandmate and your new bandmate, and it's like it's because what makes the album special is the fact that they're working as a band, not as like a solo artist,
Yep.
and I think that's great. And there's a difference between specifically this song Thunder Underground and the rest of it. This one sounds to me a lot like Sabbath, like a lot. uh, the difference would be if it had Bill Ward on drums, it would swing like in a different way. It would be more jazzy. And
Interesting.
again, we're
Okay.
talking about the drumming. The album has to be kind of radio friendly, has to be more steady, less improvisation
Yeah.
and less flashy stuff.
Great
So
point.
that's why Bill Ward wouldn't fit in this sort of concept. But it's apart from the drumming, it's very much like a Black Sabbath song. It's really dark and really slow. So
Yeah.
like, because that's the thing, like Sabbath, the songs that have a slow pace. They don't rush. And
I think Zakk exudes. Randy Rhoads was 100% a glam metal guitarist, and you look at people he influenced like Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, and it was about speed and shredding. Whereas I feel like Tony Iommi was about the riffs, and I feel that Zakk Wylde, he encompasses the best of both. He has the speed and the shredding and the technique of Randy Rhoads, but I think ultimately at his core, he loves Black Sabbath and Tony Iommi, which is why songs like Thunder Underground work. Yeah. And we know he loves Tony Iommi because we went and saw his tribute band to Black Sabbath, which is called Zakk Sabbath. Do you remember that day? Do you remember when we saw them?
Yeah, we went to see them on the day that was the anniversary of Black Sabbath's first album, I guess.
And it was in Birmingham we saw them.
Yes.
So
exactly.
big day, yeah.
Just quick story talking about Birmingham. This picture behind me is Ozzy visiting his former school in Birmingham.
Amazing.
So he went there to see his old school, and no one recognized him. The kids, not the kids, and then the people who were working there, much older, they all knew who he was.
I was just thinking whilst we were talking about something a while ago, I was thinking, look at how different our photos are. My one is like epitomizes his music, heavy metal, some guy sort of, going up to heaven, blood around the screen. Like I think you can see the eyes on the eyes and the teeth on his body, and then the other one is just Ozzy in Birmingham, just probably like. Which way's the school again, Sharon? Which way? I don't know where I bloody am. What a guy, honestly, man. Definitely the premier character of heavy metal. What a man!
Yes.
What a man!
I think music wouldn't be the same without Ozzy.
It's just God, I don't want to imagine a world without Black Sabbath. Let alone him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, any particular aspects of the songs you wanted to talk about?
Well, I sort of I want to talk about the choices they made for singles is See You on the Other Side, Perry Mason, and I Just Want You.
Yeah.
I Just Want You and Perry Mason are right at the beginning of the album. And I think maybe that was a really clever choice to put something that is like more interesting commercially right at the beginning. On the other hand, Perry Mason is so heavy. Maybe it's the best arrangement in the album, even if you find another song in the album that's more well written as a song, as a melody or lyrics or whatever. Perry Mason's just got that riff. Zakk Wylde said that they were jamming to that riff, and that's how it came about. And then the lyrics came after. So again, it's a band effort. Maybe that's why it sounds good, because a lot of the stuff in the album was written by pop songwriters. Let me see, I've got some of the names here. Oh, well, you had another rock icon collaborating, which is Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yes, that was on track 5, See You on the Other Side.
Yeah. And you have Gene Valance, who wrote songs in partnership with Bryan Adams. So pop, like I think he wrote Summer of '69 and Heaven, like those pop ballads. But maybe he was there to help with the ballads, I assume. And Mark Hudson, who worked with Aerosmith, So, but
Isn't it funny? Sorry, go on.
yeah, no, go
No,
on.
I was just going to say, isn't it funny how you can hear the reflective thing of each one? You know, Jim Valance, who worked with Bryan Adams, and I Just Want You, although it's kind of, it doesn't sound like Bryan Adams, it
No.
has a, it's
Oh man, can we get
overproduced.
AI to do Bryan Adams singing? I just want, yeah, I would
Yeah,
love to
there
hear
you
that.
go. But
Yeah.
it has that kind of, oh, I don't know how to describe it. It has that modern rock kind of sound. I Just Want You. It's heavy on the keyboards. Look at who contributed to Perry Mason. John Purdell, who
Hmm.
worked on Awake by Dream Theater.
Wow.
So that explains that. And then you say Mark Hudson on Ghost Behind My Eyes, who worked with Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Ghost Behind My Eyes is a fantastic power ballad. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, you can
Yeah.
see how each of these songwriters has just given a little bit to the song
Yeah.
to shape the personality of the individual songs.
Exactly. I think that brings a balance to what the band wanted to do. Otherwise, the whole album would be a bit like Perry Mason and Thunder and Underground, and
Yeah.
it's not what it was intended to be, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you have a favorite song?
Ghost Behind My Eyes, always. But in terms of this new list, as in when I first listened to this years ago, that was the one that always stuck with me. Perry Mason's brilliant. Thunder Underground's proper Sabbathy. See You on the Other Side, I can see why it's a hit completely. Denial, probably my second favourite. I love the verse. Um, and the riffs in My Jekyll Doesn't Hide is brilliant. And Old LA Tonight is a lovely emotive song. So yeah, Ghost Behind My Eyes is my favourite, but they all play a part. You know, I don't feel like there's a filler track on there, to be honest. What
No, I
about
don't
you?
think. Yeah, no, I think my favorites are Thunder Underground and I Just Want You. I think I Just Want You takes first place. I really love the song, the lyrics,
Mm,
the way it's arranged, and the tension until the chorus comes up. Yeah, it's beautiful album. And
yeah.
Perry Mason, I mean, they couldn't have found a better one just to open the album. I think the
Hmm.
bass kind of taking the lead, you know, the
Yeah.
bass riff is like Geezer Butler is back, right? There you go. So it's like you got that like I don't know, it's not it's like an old school bassist playing in a slightly more modern way, and the riff is just perfect. And of course you got Rick Wakeman, so doesn't get any better than that, does it?
Yeah. Proper heavy.
Um yeah.
Um, I mean, do you have anything else to say? What
No
else do you
man,
want
I
to say?
think I've said everything I've planned to
Yeah.
say.
Nice. I'll just check my notes, but no, I mean, lyrics. We didn't talk about that. I mean, we've kind of alluded. I know you like lyrics.
I
Like, did
think
you?
yeah, I do. I do. I find sometimes with Ozzy kind of not that easy to decipher what he wants to
Mm.
say
I've
in
looked
many
into
ways.
some of the themes, and you know, it talks about addiction. You know, reflecting on his past experiences,
Yeah,
his honesty, and his
I
portrayal about
actually thought if
himself, mortality and reflection, and sort of relationships and personal connections. I sort of found were the main themes of the album. But he's not easy to read, is he? He's not like, you know,
no,
his
no, no,
lyrics are
and like
not
I just
obvious.
want you. I just want you is an interesting one because it's like it's a love song, but he's basically talking about everything else but love. He's talking
Ah,
about everything he sees in the world, and then but I don't want any of that.
I forgot. I
So that's
wrote
a
a
cool
lyric
one.
down.
Yeah.
Not my favorite lyric, but a lyric I found interesting from "I Just Want You." I'm
Mhm.
sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I
Yeah.
just thought that's so not songwritery, is it? Right,
Yeah,
you know,
it's like
rhyming sick and
you
tired
think,
with sick and
oh,
tired,
that's a bit silly, isn't it? But it works. It works for him.
and you kind
Yeah,
of, but it's the idea of just focusing on that line. He's sick and tired of being sick and tired because he's always sick and tired of being sick and tired because he's sick and it works because when you
yeah,
think about it, it's just like it's this
yeah,
never-ending cycle of him being sick and tired.
yeah.
And I heard it, I thought, well, why would you repeat that lyric twice? But
Yeah, and
then
I
it
think
makes
there's
sense.
some stuff in those lyrics that should have married Lennon's daughter. I don't know why he said that in the lyric. I don't know what that means.
Interesting, interesting. But yeah, other than
Anyway,
that,
there's some stuff that I just don't know. Oh, it's just there to rhyme, like. But again, in this song, I have a feeling he's talking about all the things that maybe don't make too much sense in the world, and like,
mm,
and uh, and how he doesn't believe in anything, doesn't like anything, and doesn't care about it, and all that noise around him, and then he just wants the person he loves. That's
yeah,
an interesting way of building a love song instead of just doing the cheesy.
yeah,
There's no "I love you" in the song. It's not.
no.
It's not that.
The solo on "I Just Want You" is brilliant as well because it kind of showcases straight away Zakk Wylde and his use of effects. He's got this sort of flange, wah wah sound on his guitar that I think really hits home. But man, everything he's done. I mean, he's got pinch harmonics throughout the album.
Oh yeah.
What song is it? There's one where they're really obvious. My Jekyll Doesn't Hide. The
Oh
riff is
yeah.
just
That's
full
a
of
heavy one.
harmonics. I'm just I'm just super impressed with Zakk Wylde and his performance on this. And not even just his performance, but his contribution to the writing of the album, to the writing of the riffs and all that stuff. He's a truly great guitarist. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
I've
know.
ever really given him enough credit, because when I was getting into heavy metal, Black Label Society were not the first band I like. I can't really say I love them or even like them now. So there's some stuff they've done that I think is great, and I respect them completely, but they just don't really tick boxes for me. So when I was growing up learning about heavy metal guitarists, Zakk Wylde and Dimebag were best friends. And
Right.
Dimebag obviously is he passed away, or was killed, and his legacy is that of being one of the greatest ever heavy metal guitarists, along with Randy Rhoads, along with Tony Iommi, that ilk of guitarists. And so I think maybe for me, Zakk Wylde kind of went under the radar a bit, but having seen him live, having seen what he's done with Ozzy, and actually after this, I went and listened to the Live and Loud album. He's a phenomenal guitarist. He really is.
Yeah, he is. He is, and I think there's um, although his solos are amazing, I love him because of the riffs. He's so creative with the
That's what I
riffs.
was saying earlier about how he really does embody that Tony Iommi riff factor. The riff comes first. As good as the
Yeah,
solos are, I don't feel like there's a song where I'm like, well, that solo was brilliant, but the riff wasn't very good.
yeah,
Everything matches,
yeah.
doesn't
No,
it?
everything's amazing on
Yeah.
it.
Well, I think,
It's an album worth listening to a couple of
yeah,
times. You know,
we didn't talk really about production. I don't think there's much to say. It's quite produced, isn't it?
it's
When,
polished
yeah,
in many ways, and I think
lots
it's
of
that's what I
keyboards,
said
lots
to
of sound
you.
effects.
Yeah, I think the presence of piano and keyboards and the echo on the drums and all that kind of stuff. Not only the arrangements, I think, as I said to you, the restrictions on how you can drum in an album like that, and the bass lines being more um, arranged than improvised, which is
Hmm.
not what Geezer Butler would normally do.
Yeah.
So there's a that's the musical side of the production, I would say, and yeah, the sounds are compressed enough to be acceptable by radio stations or rock radio stations. So uh, I imagine that they did the previous idea with Steve Vai was far from what this album has become. And
Can you
yeah,
imagine if we, like, they release it after 50 years?
well, I hope they do at some point, even just
We'll
one
see.
song. I just
We'll
want to hear
see.
another song. But yeah, I think the
Excellent.
production, what I would say is this, like they clearly wanted it to be a commercial success. So the sounds are designed to be, uh, if not radio friendly, like not too aggressive, despite the heavy riffs.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
Do you want
right.
to finish us off with your monologue?
Yeah, man.
Excellent. Cool.
So here we go.
Go
I
for
do
it.
have a monologue for today, although it was your episode, wasn't it? They just say, yeah. But yeah, I love this
When
album.
I
So
said
it's
to I said to Felipe, I was like, "Listen, why don't you do the monologue if you love the album?" And I thought I was being lovely and saying, "You know what, best friend, you can have it, mate. If you love this album
yeah,
this much, you have
yeah.
it." And I got
Not being you're not being a
I
slacker,
got a
isn't it?
one
It's
word
just no, it's
reply:
just
slacker.
yeah. That was my reply. So, yeah, well, yeah,
Excellent.
I love it so much, bro. You can have this monologue, slacker.
Excellent. Yeah, go for it, man.
Right, here we go. In 1995, Ozzy Osbourne was coming out of a brief retirement to produce a masterpiece of heavy rock. Ozzmosis was a result of partnerships, the first of them with virtuoso guitarist Steve Vai. Unfortunately, we never had a chance to listen to what they have created together, apart from one tune that made to the final cut of the album. With his bandmates on the road with their own projects, Ozzy decided to team up with his old bandmate Geezer Butler on bass, and Zakk Wylde was back on guitar. Dean Castronovo joined them on drums to complete a dream lineup for hard rock. A mix of collaborations with renowned songwriters and the members of his band was Ozzy's way to come up with 10 songs that turned to be some of his finest material. Ozzmosis is a well-balanced combination of ballads and heavy riffs, hard rock and pop, love and anger. It's Ozzy at his best. Turn the volume to 11 and enjoy this classic from the Prince of Darkness.
Brilliant, man. Yeah,
Thank
the
you, thank you.
last part you said about how it's well balanced in all those
Yeah,
aspects is true, 100%.
yeah, and
It's
I think that's what it is, the love and anger and all the stuff, because yeah, he's got, although he's writing ballads and occasionally trying not to be so heavy. There is anger in the lyrics, and there's darkness somehow everywhere. So some people say it's an exaggeration to call him the Prince of Darkness. I do think, because I see Ozzy as this fella on the picture here, like just a cool fella from Birmingham, a nice guy to. I would love to have a pint with him one day. I don't think he drinks anymore, but I wouldn't mind having a pint of non-alcoholic Guinness with him. But I don't see him as the Prince of Darkness, but there is a lot of darkness in the album that balances out the sort of pop side of it.
Agreed. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, do us a favour and find out where you review your episodes. Go and give us a rating, give us 5 stars, write a nice little sentence about us. And what that's going to do is going to shoot us up the charts so that we'd be seen by more people. And if you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe to stay up to date with more content. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for being with us one more time. You guys are great. Keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything else you can do.
As usual, take care and long live rock and roll.